The air was thick with the stench of gunpowder and blood, and the ground beneath me trembled as another shell tore through the night. I lay flat in the frozen mud of Stalingrad, 1942, my breath shallow, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might betray my position. The German sniper's voice still echoed in my skull. Du bist schon tot. You're already dead. His words, sharp and guttural, had sliced through the silence after his bullet grazed my helmet, missing my temple by a hair's breadth. I could still feel the heat of it, the way it kissed my skin like a lover's taunt, promising death but leaving me alive. For now. My fingers clutched the rifle, slick with sweat despite the biting cold, as I waited for dawn to break over the shattered ruins of the city. Every shadow could be him. Every glint of moonlight could be the last thing I saw. I was Ivan Petrovich, a farm boy from a village so small it barely had a name, now just another Soviet soldier in a war that chewed up men like grain in a thresher. That night, pinned under the sniper's scope, I wasn't thinking of glory or Mother Russia. I was thinking of my sister's laugh, the way she'd braid wildflowers into her hair and how I'd promised her I'd come home. But war doesn't care about promises. It's a beast that devours everything: hope, love, even the will to live. Yet here I was, still breathing, still fighting, because something inside me refused to let that German's words be true. What you're about to hear isn't just my story, it's a truth buried in the rubble of Stalingrad, a secret I carried through the bloodiest winter of my life. It's about what I saw in the ruins, what I did to survive, and the choice I made that still haunts me. Was I a hero, a coward, or something worse? You'll have to decide for yourself, but I warn you, the truth of war isn't clean. It's a jagged blade that cuts deep, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. What would you do when death calls your name but lets you live? Would you run, fight, or make a deal with the devil to see another sunrise? War shows you who you are when the world falls apart. It strips you bare, forces you to face the fragility of life, the raw pulse of survival that keeps you moving when everything else screams to give up. My story isn't just about bullets and blood. It's about the moment you realize humanity can be both monstrous and beautiful, even in the same breath. I'm asking you to step into that frozen hell with me, to feel the weight of a rifle in your hands, to hear the sniper's voice in your head. If you're ready to face that truth, hit that like button right now. Let's make sure these stories, the ones the world tries to bury, reach those who need to hear them. And in the comments, write this: I want to hear the whole truth of this story. By doing so, you're joining a community that isn't afraid to look into the darkness, to honor the voices of those who survived the unspeakable. Thank you for having the courage to listen. What comes next will pull you deeper into the heart of Stalingrad, where every choice was a gamble with death, and every dawn was a miracle I didn't expect to see. The night stretched on, endless and cruel, as if the stars themselves had abandoned Stalingrad. I pressed my body deeper into the mud, the cold seeping into my bones, my fingers numb around the stock of my Mosin Nagant rifle. The German sniper's words, "You're already dead," looped in my mind, taunting me with every heartbeat. Somewhere out there, in the skeletal remains of what used to be a factory, he was waiting, his scope trained on the darkness, searching for the slightest movement. I didn't dare lift my head, not yet. The air was alive with the scream of artillery, the ground shuddering with each impact, and the distant cries of men, some calling for medics, others for their mothers, cut through the chaos like knives. I wasn't alone in that ditch. Beside me, pressed just as low, was Sasha, my squad mate, a wiry kid from Leningrad with eyes too old for his 19 years. His breath came in short, ragged gasps, and I could see his hands trembling as he clutched his rifle. "Ivan," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the roar of a nearby explosion. "You think he's still out there?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. My mouth was dry, my throat tight with fear, and all I could do was stare at the jagged silhouette of the factory across the field, its broken walls glowing faintly under the moon. That's where the sniper was. I could feel his gaze like a predator sizing up its prey. We'd been sent to hold this miserable stretch of ground, a patch of no man's land between our lines and the Germans. The orders were simple: don't let them advance. But simple doesn't mean easy. The day before, our squad of 10 had been whittled down to 6. Misha, the poet who always carried a tattered book of Pushkin, took a bullet through the neck at dusk. Katya, the sharpshooter who could hit a coin at 50 paces, vanished in a mortar blast, her scream cut short. Now it was just me, Sasha, and a handful of others scattered in the dark, trying to stay alive until dawn. The first bombs fell just after midnight. The sky lit up, a sickly orange glow that turned the ruins into a nightmare of shadows. I remember the sound most of all. A low, guttural roar like the earth itself was tearing apart. The shockwave hit us first, slamming into my chest, stealing my breath. Then the shrapnel, hissing through the air like a swarm of angry wasps. I threw myself flat, my face pressed into the dirt, tasting blood and grit. Sasha was screaming something, but I couldn't make it out. All I could hear was the deafening pulse in my ears, the world reduced to a single desperate thought. Survive this. Just survive this. When the barrage finally stopped, the silence was worse. It was the kind of quiet that makes your skin crawl because you know it's not over. I lifted my head just enough to scan the field. The moonlight caught on something, a glint, sharp and fleeting from the factory's second floor. The sniper. My stomach twisted. He was still there, still hunting. I nudged Sasha, pointing toward the glint. His eyes widened, and for a moment I saw the boy he used to be. The one who probably played in the streets of Leningrad before the war turned him into this haunted shadow. "What do we do, Ivan?" he whispered. I didn't know. I was no hero, no strategist. I was just a farm boy who'd been handed a rifle and told to fight. But then I remembered my sister, Lena. Her face flashed in my mind, her crooked smile, the way she'd hum folk songs while mending my shirts. I'd promised her I'd come back. That promise was the only thing keeping me from curling up in that ditch and giving up. I looked at Sasha, his face pale and streaked with mud, and I realized he was clinging to something too. Maybe it was his mother, or a girl he'd left behind, or just the hope of seeing another sunrise. Whatever it was enough to make him stay, to keep breathing despite the terror. "We wait," I said finally, my voice low but steady. "We wait for him to move first." It wasn't a plan, not really, but it was all I had. The sniper was patient, but so were we. War had taught us that much. You learn to endure, to outlast, to hold on when every instinct screams to run. I shifted slightly, my fingers brushing against something in the mud, a small, cold object. I pulled it out, my heart sinking as I recognized it. A locket, half buried, its chain broken. It wasn't mine, and it wasn't Sasha's. It belonged to someone who'd been here before us, someone who hadn't made it. I slipped it into my pocket, not sure why, but feeling like it was important. Like it was a piece of someone's story I was meant to carry. The night dragged on, each second heavier than the last. The cold gnawed at us, the fear worse than the cold. Every rustle, every distant crack made my pulse spike. I kept my eyes on the factory, on that glint that hadn't moved. Was he still there? Was he watching me even now, his finger on the trigger? I didn't know. All I knew was that I was still alive, still breathing, and that was enough to keep me going. But as the first faint light of dawn began to creep over the horizon, something shifted in the air. A sound, faint but unmistakable, a footstep crunching on broken glass. The sniper was moving, and so was my fate. The crunch of glass underfoot was faint, but in the eerie silence before dawn it might as well have been a gunshot. My heart lurched, and I pressed myself harder into the icy mud. My rifle clutched so tightly my knuckles ached. Sasha's eyes, wide and frantic, locked onto mine, his breath hitching as he mouthed, "He's coming." The German sniper, the phantom who'd haunted us all night, was no longer just a glint in the factory's ruins. He was moving, stalking through the shattered streets of Stalingrad, and every step brought him closer to us. The air felt heavier, charged with the certainty that one wrong move would end us. I strained my eyes, peering through the dim light toward the factory. The first streaks of dawn painted the sky a sickly gray, casting long shadows that twisted the broken walls into grotesque shapes. There, a flicker of movement, a silhouette slipping between two collapsed beams. It was him. I couldn't see his face, but I could feel his intent, cold and precise like the scope he carried. My mind raced. Was he repositioning, hunting? Or had he seen us pinned in this ditch like rats in a trap? The locket I'd found earlier weighed heavy in my pocket, a reminder of how many had fallen in this godforsaken place. I didn't want to join them. Sasha shifted beside me, his rifle trembling in his hands. "Ivan, we can't stay here," he whispered, his voice cracking with panic. "He'll find us. He'll kill us." I wanted to snap at him, to tell him to shut up, but I couldn't. He was right. Staying still was a death sentence, but moving was a gamble with worse odds. The sniper had the high ground, the advantage, and that voice, "You're already dead," still echoed in my head, mocking my every breath. I glanced at Sasha, his face streaked with dirt and fear, and I saw myself reflected in his eyes, a scared boy pretending to be a soldier, clinging to a promise that felt more like a lie with every passing hour. "We move when I say," I hissed, trying to sound like I had a plan, but my mind was a storm of doubt. The ditch we were in was shallow, barely enough to cover us, and the open ground between us and the nearest rubble pile was a killing field. If we ran, we'd be exposed. If we stayed, he'd find us eventually. I scanned the horizon, searching for anything, a crater, a wall, a shadow that could shield us. That's when I saw it. A half-collapsed basement maybe 20 meters away, its entrance partially hidden by a pile of broken bricks. It wasn't much, but it was something. A chance, another sound, a soft scrape like a boot on stone. Closer this time. My stomach twisted and I gestured to Sasha, pointing toward the basement. His eyes followed, then snapped back to me, pleading. "It's too far," he mouthed. I shook my head, my jaw tight. "It's all we've got." I didn't wait for him to argue. I crawled forward, inching along the ditch, my elbows dragging through the mud, my rifle cradled against my chest. Sasha followed, his breathing loud enough to make me wince. Every second felt like an eternity. Every rustle of my uniform a betrayal to the sniper's ears. We reached the edge of the ditch, the basement entrance looming just across the open ground. The air was still, the kind of quiet that suffocates, broken only by the distant groan of a dying city. I risked a glance toward the factory. The silhouette was gone. My heart sank. Where was he? Had he seen us? Was he circling around, waiting for us to break cover? I didn't have time to think. "Now," I whispered, and before I could second-guess myself, I bolted. My legs burned as I sprinted, my boots slipping on the frost-slicked ground. Sasha was right behind me, his breath ragged, his rifle clattering against his side. 10 meters. 5. I dove into the basement entrance, crashing into the rubble, my shoulder slamming against a jagged piece of concrete. Pain shot through me, but I didn't care. I was alive. Sasha tumbled in after me, his chest heaving, his eyes wild with terror and relief. We crouched in the darkness, the air damp and heavy with the smell of mold and ash. For a moment we were safe, or so I thought. The basement was a tomb of shadows, its walls cracked and sagging, the floor littered with debris. A faint light filtered through a hole in the ceiling, illuminating a corner where something caught my eye. A bundle of cloth, stained and crumpled. I crawled closer, my heart pounding. It wasn't just cloth. It was a body, or what was left of one, a Soviet soldier, his uniform torn, his face frozen in a grimace of pain. His hands were curled around a photograph, crumpled but intact, showing a woman and a child. My throat tightened. I didn't know him, but I knew his story. It was mine, Sasha's, every soldier's in this war. A life left behind, a promise broken. Sasha grabbed my arm, his voice barely a whisper. "Ivan, look!" He pointed to the far wall where a faint scratching sound echoed. My blood ran cold. It wasn't the sniper, it was worse. The wall was trembling, dust falling in thin streams. The Germans were shelling again, and this basement, our refuge, was about to become our grave. I gripped the locket in my pocket, its edges biting into my palm, and made a decision. We couldn't stay here, but as I turned to Sasha, ready to tell him we had to move, a new sound stopped me cold. A low, deliberate whistle, coming from just outside the entrance. The sniper. He'd found us. The whistle hung in the air, low and mocking, like a tune from a forgotten folk song twisted into something sinister. It slithered into the basement, wrapping around us, tightening like a noose. Sasha's grip on my arm turned vice-like, his nails digging into my flesh, but I barely felt it. My world narrowed to the entrance. A jagged hole framed by crumbling concrete, the pale dawn light filtering in just enough to cast eerie shadows. The sniper was out there, close enough that I could almost smell his sweat and gun oil. He knew we were here. The whistle was his way of saying it. "I've got you. You're already dead." I motioned for Sasha to stay quiet, my finger pressed to my lips, though I doubted he could make a sound even if he wanted to. His face was ashen, his eyes darting like a trapped animal's. The body in the corner, that poor bastard with the photograph, seemed to stare at us accusingly, as if to say, "This is how it ends for all of us." I pushed the thought away, focusing on the whistle. It stopped abruptly, replaced by the soft crunch of boots on rubble. He was circling, patient as death. My mind raced through options, fight, hide, run, but each one felt like a trap. The basement was a dead end, with no other exit that I could see in the dim light. We were cornered. Slowly, I shouldered my rifle, aiming at the entrance. My hands were steady, surprisingly, the fear sharpening my senses rather than dulling them. I'd fired this gun 100 times in training, but never at a man up close, never with my life hanging by a thread. The sniper's shadow fell across the opening, elongated and monstrous. He paused, and I held my breath, finger on the trigger. Then a voice. His voice, the same one that had haunted me all night. "Ruski," he called, his Russian accented but clear. "Come out, or I come in." There was amusement in his tone, like this was a game to him, a cat toying with mice. Sasha whimpered softly, and I shot him a glare. We couldn't surrender. Stories from the front lines whispered of what the Germans did to prisoners. Interrogation, torture, or worse, a quick bullet if you were lucky. But staying here meant he'd smoke us out or toss a grenade. I scanned the basement again, desperate for anything useful. In the far corner, behind the body, I spotted a loose grate in the wall, partially covered by debris. It looked like it led to a sewer or ventilation shaft, narrow but maybe big enough for us to crawl through. It was a long shot, but it was hope. "Last chance, Ruski," the sniper called again, his voice closer now. I could hear the click of his rifle's bolt. My heart hammered against my ribs. I gestured to Sasha, pointing at the grate. He nodded, understanding. We had to move fast. I covered him as he crawled toward it, his body low, scraping against the floor. The rubble shifted under him, a small stone clattering loudly. I froze. Outside, the boots stopped. Silence, thick and oppressive. Then hell broke loose. A grenade sailed through the entrance, bouncing once, twice, before rolling to a stop near the center of the room. Time slowed. I saw the pin was pulled, the fuse hissing. Sasha was halfway to the grate, too far to make it. Without thinking, I lunged, grabbing the grenade. It was hot in my hand, burning my palm, but I hurled it back out the entrance with all my strength. It exploded midair, the blast wave slamming into me, throwing me against the wall. Shrapnel whizzed past, one piece grazing my cheek, drawing blood. The world rang with the echo, dust and smoke filling the basement. Sasha screamed, but it was drowned out by the sniper's curse. German words I didn't understand, but the rage was universal. I scrambled to my feet, ears ringing, vision blurred. "Go!" I yelled at Sasha, pushing him toward the grate. He pried it open with shaking hands, the metal groaning in protest. It was tight, barely wide enough, but he squeezed through, disappearing into the darkness. I followed, my rifle slung over my shoulder, the locket bouncing against my chest as I crawled. The shaft was pitch black, the air foul with the stench of rot and sewage. My knees scraped on rough stone, but I kept moving. Driven by the sounds behind me, the sniper's boots crunching into the basement, his rifle sweeping the room. We crawled for what felt like hours, though it was probably minutes. The shaft sloped downward, then leveled out, branching in directions I couldn't see. Sasha was ahead, his breathing labored. "Which way?" he whispered. I didn't know. I chose left, hoping it led away from the front lines. The walls closed in, claustrophobic, and doubt crept in. What if this led nowhere? What if the sniper was following? But then, a faint light ahead, a crack in the ceiling, daylight seeping through. We pushed toward it, emerging into another ruined building, this one farther from the factory. We collapsed against the wall, gasping. My hand throbbed from the grenade, blistered and raw, but I was alive. Sasha looked at me, his eyes filled with something like awe. "You saved us, Ivan." I shook my head. It wasn't heroism. It was survival. The locket in my pocket felt heavier now. A talisman or a curse, I wasn't sure. Outside, the sounds of battle raged on. Gunfire, shouts, the rumble of tanks. The sniper was still out there, and I knew he wouldn't forget. But for now, we had a moment to breathe, to plan our next move. Dawn had fully broken, casting a cold light over Stalingrad's corpse. And in that light, I saw something that chilled me more than the sniper's whistle. Smoke rising from our lines, thick and black. Our squad, what was left of it, was under attack. The smoke billowed up from our lines like a dark omen, thick columns twisting into the gray dawn sky, carrying with them the acrid scent of burning wood and something worse. Flesh, perhaps, or the remnants of lives extinguished in an instant. Sasha and I stared from the ruined building's edge, our breath still ragged from the crawl through the shaft, my blistered hand throbbing in rhythm with my pulse. The sniper's trap had nearly claimed us, his whistle still echoing in my ears like a ghost's laugh. But now a greater horror unfolded. Our squad, what remained of it after the night's carnage, was under siege. Gunfire cracked in the distance, sharp and relentless, mingled with shouts in Russian and German. I gripped my rifle tighter, the weight familiar yet heavier now, loaded with the burden of choices I never wanted to make. Sasha's voice broke the trance, hoarse and urgent. "Ivan, that's our boys. We have to go back." His eyes, red-rimmed from dust and fear, pleaded with me. He was right, of course. We couldn't abandon them. Petrov, the grizzled sergeant who drilled us relentlessly, young Dmitri, who joked to hide his terror, and the others, they were all we had left in this frozen hell of Stalingrad. But going back meant crossing that killing field again, risking the sniper's scope or whatever fresh nightmare the Germans had unleashed. The locket in my pocket pressed against my skin, a cold reminder of the dead soldier in the basement, his photograph of a family he'd never see again. I wondered if Lena, my sister, would ever hold something of mine, a token of a brother lost to the war. I nodded, swallowing the knot in my throat. We go, but smart. Not straight on. We couldn't charge blindly. That was suicide. The building we were in was part of a row of gutted apartments, their walls pockmarked with bullet holes, floors sagging under the weight of collapse. I led Sasha through the shadows, weaving between rooms where furniture lay splintered like broken bones. A child's doll stared up from the debris, its porcelain face cracked, eyes empty. It hit me then, harder than any shrapnel. These ruins were homes once, filled with laughter, meals shared around tables, lives untouched by the beast of war. Now they were graves, and we were the ghosts haunting them. As we moved, the sounds of battle grew louder. A machine gun rattled, its staccato burst cutting through the air, followed by a scream that curdled my blood. We reached the end of the row, peering out toward our lines. A makeshift trench dug into the snow and mud, fortified with sandbags and barbed wire. The smoke was coming from a crater where a shell had hit, flames licking at the edges. I spotted movement. Petrov, his greatcoat torn, firing over the parapet. Dmitri was beside him, reloading frantically. But there were Germans advancing, gray uniforms blending with the dawn light, bayonets fixed. They were close, too close. My mind flashed back to the sniper. Had he joined them? Was he watching even now, his crosshairs on us? I pushed the thought aside. "Flank them," I whispered to Sasha. "You go left, I'll go right. Meet at the trench." He hesitated, his face pale, but nodded. We split, and I darted across a narrow alley, my boots crunching on glass shards. The cold air burned my lungs, each breath a reminder that I was still alive, still fighting against the Germans' prophecy. I reached a pile of rubble, crouching behind it, and took aim. The nearest German was a big man, his helmet low, rifle raised. I sighted him, my finger steady on the trigger. The shot cracked, and he jerked, falling face first into the mud. One down, chaos erupted. The Germans turned, firing wildly. Bullets whined past me, chipping stone. I rolled, scrambling to new cover. A overturned cart. From there I saw Sasha, his position mirroring mine, picking off another enemy. Good lad. Petrov spotted us, his roar carrying over the din. "Reinforcements."
Hold the line.
His voice galvanized the squad, their fire intensifying. But the Germans pressed on, driven by whatever madness fueled them. A grenade arced toward the trench, exploding in a shower of dirt and screams. Dmitri, poor Dmitri, clutched his side, blood blooming through his uniform. I charged then, adrenaline surging, rifle barking as I ran. "For Russia!" I yelled, though it felt hollow, more a cry of defiance against the fear clawing at my gut. I reached the trench, sliding in beside Petrov. He clapped my shoulder, his grizzled face splitting in a grim smile. "Thought you were gone, Petrovich." I shook my head, reloading. "Not yet." Sasha joined us moments later, panting, his rifle smoking. We fought side by side, the trench a cauldron of noise and fury. Bullets zipped overhead, men grunted and cursed, the air thick with cordite. In the midst of it, a moment of surreal clarity. I saw a German soldier, young like Sasha, his eyes wide with terror as he leveled his gun at me. Time slowed. I fired first, and he crumpled, his body twitching in the snow. Guilt twisted in me. He was someone's brother, someone's son. War made monsters of us all, stripping away humanity one kill at a time. The locket burned in my pocket, a silent accusation. How many more would I add to the tally before this ended? The assault faltered, the Germans retreating under our barrage. Cheers rose from the trench, weak but triumphant. Petrov slumped against the wall, his arm bandaged roughly. "We held," he muttered. But the cost was high. Dmitri lay still, his eyes open to the sky. Sasha knelt beside him. closing his lids with trembling fingers. I turned away, staring at the smoke still rising, a pyre for the fallen. Dawn had given way to morning, the sun a pale disk through the haze. But peace was an illusion. The sniper was out there and the war ground on. As I caught my breath, a new sound pierced the air, a distant rumble growing louder. Tanks. German tanks, rolling toward us like iron beasts. Our respite was over. The rumble grew from a distant thunder to a bone-shaking roar, vibrating through the frozen earth and up into our trench like the growl of some ancient monster awakened from the depths. Petrov's face hardened, his eyes narrowing as he peered over the parapet, his breath fogging in the crisp morning air. "Tanks," he muttered, spitting the word like a curse. "Panzers. At least 3, maybe more." Sasha, still kneeling by Dmitri's lifeless body, looked up, his face a mask of exhaustion and grief turning to fresh terror. The smoke from the earlier shelling hung low, mixing with the exhaust plumes now visible on the horizon, gray behemoths lumbering toward us, their tracks churning the snow into mud, cannons swiveling like predatory eyes. I felt a chill deeper than the Stalingrad winter settle in my gut. We'd held against infantry, but tanks, they were death on treads, unstoppable machines that crushed men under their weight without a second thought. I remembered the stories from the older soldiers, the ones who'd survived the initial German push. They'd spoken of panzers rolling over positions like they were nothing, their machine guns chattering, shells blasting craters where squads once stood. "Grab hold of them," one veteran had said, his voice rough from too many cigarettes and screams. "Get close like a lover and don't let go. That's the only way." It sounded mad then, but now, as the first tank's turret turned toward our trench, I understood. Distance was the enemy. Closeness was our only chance. We had no anti-tank guns, no artillery support, just rifles, grenades, and whatever madness war had instilled in us. Petrov barked orders, his voice cutting through the panic. "Molotovs! Get the bottles ready! Sasha, Ivan, flank positions. Dmitri's gone. Honor him by not joining him yet." We scrambled, hands fumbling in the supply crates for the crude weapons, bottles filled with gasoline, rags stuffed in the necks. My blistered hand screamed in protest as I gripped one, but pain was a luxury I couldn't afford. The tanks were closer now, maybe 200 meters, their engines drowning out everything else. Infantry followed in their wake, gray figures darting between the hulks, using them as shields. A shell whistled overhead, exploding behind us in a fountain of dirt and shrapnel. Someone screamed, another squad mate down, his leg mangled. Sasha and I crawled to the trench's edge, hearts pounding. "Like beasts," Sasha whispered, echoing words I'd heard from survivors, men who'd become animals to endure. "We fight like beasts," I nodded, my mouth dry. The lead tank fired again, the blast shaking the ground, collapsing part of our parapet. Petrov returned fire with the machine gun, bullets sparking harmlessly off the armor. It was futile, but it was defiance. I lit the rag on my Molotov, the flame flickering uncertainly in the wind. "Now!" Petrov yelled. We burst from the trench, legs pumping, the world narrowing to the tank before me. It was a Panzer III, its cross emblem mocking us, its cannon swinging my way. Bullets whined past, one clipping my sleeve, drawing blood. I ignored it, closing the distance. 20 meters. 10. The tank's machine gun opened up, stitching the ground at my feet. I dove, rolling under its shadow, the treads inches from my head. The heat from the engine washed over me, the stench of oil and metal choking. I hurled the bottle at the rear grille where the engine breathed. It shattered, flames erupting in a whoosh, licking up the sides. The tank lurched, its crew shouting inside. I scrambled away, but not fast enough. A hatch opened, a German popping out with a pistol. His shot grazed my shoulder, fire blooming across my skin. I fired back, my rifle bucking, and he slumped, blood spraying. Sasha was on the second tank, his Molotov exploding against the turret. He yelled something triumphant, but it turned to a cry as infantry swarmed him. I ran to help, firing wildly, dropping one German, then another. Blood everywhere on my hands, my uniform, the snow turning red. It was like squeezing a tomato, as one soldier had described. Messy, visceral, the essence of life spilling out. We fought in a frenzy, the trench a whirlwind of chaos. Petrov grenaded a third tank, the explosion ripping its track, halting it. But the cost, oh the cost. Another man down, his chest riddled with bullets. Sasha took a hit to the leg, collapsing beside me. "Ivan," he gasped, "don't leave me." I dragged him back to cover, my arms burning, mind numb. The tanks burned, but the infantry pressed, bayonets fixed, eyes wild with the same desperation we felt. I stabbed one, the blade sinking in with a sickening give, his face contorting in shock. He was young like me, but war made no distinctions. In that moment I was a beast, as Suren had said, wanting only to kill, to survive. Death was in my pockets, walking with me, every step a gamble. The locket bounced against my chest, a reminder of humanity amid the madness. Lena's face flashed before me, her smile a beacon in the darkness. I fought for her, for the promise, for the sliver of hope that I'd see her again. The Germans faltered, retreating behind their crippled machines, but we knew it wasn't over. More would come. Petrov slumped beside us, bandaging Sasha's leg. "Good work, lads," he grunted. "But hold on. The day's just starting." As the adrenaline faded, the pain crashed in. Wounds, exhaustion, grief for Dmitri and the others. The smoke from the tanks mixed with the earlier haze, a shroud over Stalingrad. I closed my eyes briefly, breathing ragged, wondering how much more I could take. But then a new sound, a whistle, faint but familiar. The sniper? Or just the wind? My eyes snapped open, scanning the ruins. War never rested, and neither could we. The whistle faded into the wind. Or perhaps it was just my imagination, a phantom echo from the sniper's earlier taunt that refused to die. I shook my head, trying to clear the fog of fatigue that clouded my thoughts, my body aching from the wounds and the relentless push of survival. Petrov was tending to Sasha's leg, wrapping it with a strip of cloth torn from a dead man's uniform. His movements efficient, but his face etched with lines deeper than the craters around us. The burning tank sent up plumes of black smoke that stung our eyes and throats. An acrid reminder of our fragile victory. Stalingrad stretched out before us, a labyrinth of shattered buildings and twisted metal, where every corner hid death and every shadow whispered secrets of the fallen. I leaned against the trench wall, my rifle across my lap, the locket in my pocket a constant weight against my heart, pulling me back to thoughts of Lena and the life I'd left behind in that distant village. Sasha winced as Petrov tightened the bandage. His young face contorted in pain, but he didn't complain. "Thanks, Sergeant," he murmured, his voice weak but steady. Petrov grunted in response, his eyes scanning the horizon for the next threat.
"Save your breath, boy."
"We've got more coming." He was right. The war didn't pause for the wounded or the weary. The morning light revealed the full extent of the devastation. Bodies strewn across the no-man's land, Soviet and German alike, frozen in their final moments of agony or defiance. I wondered about the German I'd killed up close, the one whose eyes had met mine in that split second before my bullet ended him. Did he have a sister like Lena? A promise to return home? War blurred the lines between enemy and man, turning us all into shadows of ourselves. As the adrenaline ebbed, a strange calm settled over the trench. The gunfire had quieted to sporadic pops in the distance, and for a brief moment, it felt like the city was holding its breath. I closed my eyes, but sleep was a luxury denied. Instead, memories flooded in, unbidden and vivid. I thought of my arrival in Stalingrad months ago, the train rumbling through the night packed with boys like me, wide-eyed and ignorant of the hell awaiting us. The city had been a bustling metropolis once, with factories belching smoke and streets alive with people. Now it was a graveyard, each building a tombstone marking the end of dreams. I'd seen things here that no man should. Children scavenging in the rubble, their tiny hands digging for scraps. Mothers clutching infants as bombs fell. Soldiers reduced to begging for a quick death to end their suffering. Petrov's voice pulled me back. "Ivan, scout the ruins to the east. See if there's a way to link up with the next platoon. We can't hold here forever." I nodded, slinging my rifle over my shoulder, the motion pulling at the graze on my arm. Blood seeped through the makeshift bandage, but it was nothing compared to Sasha's wound. "Be careful," Sasha called softly, his eyes meeting mine with a mix of gratitude and fear. I gave him a reassuring nod, though inside doubt gnawed at me. The ruins to the east were a maze of collapsed walls and hidden snipers, a place where men vanished without a trace. But orders were orders, and in war, hesitation killed faster than bullets. I climbed out of the trench, keeping low, my boots sinking into the snow-mud mixture that clung like glue. The air was cold, biting at my exposed skin, but it sharpened my senses. I moved from cover to cover, darting between piles of debris, my eyes scanning for any glint of metal or movement. The whistle I'd heard earlier, was it real? The sniper's voice echoed in my mind again. You're already dead. It fueled my caution, making every step deliberate. As I delved deeper into the ruins, the sounds of the front line faded, replaced by an oppressive silence broken only by the occasional creak of settling rubble or the distant boom of artillery. That's when I heard it. Not a whistle, but whispers. Faint human voices drifting from a half-buried cellar ahead. My heart raced. Friend or foe? I approached cautiously, rifle ready, peering through a crack in the wall. Inside, dimly lit by a sliver of light, were 3 figures huddled around a small fire. They weren't soldiers, at least not anymore. 2 women, their faces gaunt and dirt-streaked, and a child no more than 10 wrapped in a tattered blanket. Civilians trapped in this nightmare. One woman was speaking softly in Russian, her voice trembling. We have to keep moving. The fighting will come back. The other nodded, cradling the child, who stared blankly at the flames. I hesitated. Protocol said to avoid civilians. They could be spies or worse, a distraction. But something in me, the part that remembered Lena, that clung to the locket, compelled me forward. I stepped into view, hands raised slightly. I'm Soviet, I said quietly. Ivan Petrovich. They startled, the child burying his face in the woman's coat. The first woman eyed me warily, her hand slipping to a hidden knife. What do you want? She asked, her tone edged with defiance. I lowered my rifle. Nothing, just, are you hurt? Do you need help? They relaxed slightly, and over the next minutes they shared their story. The women were sisters Maria and Olga, the child Olga's son, little Yuri. Their home had been bombed weeks ago, killing the rest of their family. They'd been surviving in the ruins, scavenging food from abandoned stores, dodging patrols from both sides. Maria's eyes filled with tears as she recounted finding their father's body in the street, unrecognizable except for his wedding ring. War takes everything, she whispered. Even our souls. Yuri, silent until then, looked up at me. Are you going to kill the bad men? He asked, his voice small but fierce. I knelt, meeting his gaze. I'm trying, little one. But inside, doubt swirled. Who were the bad men? The Germans, yes, but war made villains of us all. I gave them what I could, a few rations from my pack, a canteen of water. In return, Maria pressed something into my hand. A small icon of St. Nicholas, the protector of children. For luck, she said. May it keep you alive. I tucked it beside the locket, feeling a spark of humanity amid the chaos. They told me of a path through the ruins, a hidden alley that might lead to our allies. But be careful, Olga warned. There's a sniper in the tall building, the one with the clock tower. He's killed many. My blood ran cold. The sniper. The same one? It had to be. His domain extended here, his scope ruling the shadows. I thanked them, promising to send help if I could, though I knew it was a hollow vow. As I left, their whispers followed me, a reminder that war wasn't just soldiers clashing. It was families shattered, innocents caught in the crossfire. The encounter stirred something in me, a resolve mixed with sorrow. I pressed on, following their directions, the icon warm in my pocket. But as I neared the alley, a shot rang out, splintering the wall beside me. I dove for cover, heart pounding. The sniper had found me again. Or perhaps I'd walked into his trap. The whispers of the ruins turned to echoes of danger, and I knew the hunt was far from over. The bullet's impact sent shards of brick flying, peppering my face with dust and tiny cuts that stung like bee stings. I hit the ground hard, rolling behind a fallen beam, my rifle clattering beside me as I gasped for air. The shot had come from the clock tower Maria had warned about, its silhouette looming against the pale sky like a sentinel of death. My heart thundered in my chest, each beat a reminder of how close I'd come to fulfilling the sniper's prophecy. You're already dead, his voice mocked in my memory. But I was still here, still breathing, though every instinct screamed to run. The ruins around me, crumbled walls, twisted rebar, heaps of rubble, offered scant cover. A deadly playground where the hunter held all the cards. I pressed my back against the beam, scanning for an escape. The alley the civilians had mentioned was just ahead, a narrow path snaking between 2 gutted buildings, but crossing to it meant exposing myself. Another shot cracked, this one splintering wood inches from my head. Splinters embedded in my cheek, drawing blood, but I bit back the pain. He was toying with me, I realized. The German sniper perched in his tower, his scope giving him godlike vision over this forsaken corner of Stalingrad. Why not finish it? Was it sport? Or something darker? A desire to break my spirit before my body? Memories of the front lines surged. Petrov's gruff commands, Sasha's wounded leg, Dmitri's unseeing eyes. I couldn't die here, not when they needed me. The icon Maria had given me felt warm in my pocket, next to the locket, as if urging me onward. I took a deep breath, the cold air filling my lungs, and darted for the alley. Bullets chased me, one grazing my boot, another kicking up snow at my heels. I dove into the narrow passage, slamming against the wall, my shoulder protesting from earlier wounds. The alley was a tunnel of shadows, cluttered with debris, but it led away from the tower. I ran, zigzagging, my boots echoing softly. Behind me, silence. Had I lost him? Doubtful. Snipers like him were ghosts moving unseen, predicting their prey's path. I emerged from the alley into a small courtyard, surrounded by the skeletons of apartment blocks. A frozen fountain stood in the center, its basin cracked and empty. I paused, listening. The distant rumble of artillery rolled like thunder, but closer, nothing. Then a faint scrape, boots on stone. I whirled, rifle up, but saw only shadows. Paranoia gripped me. Every gust of wind was his breath, every creak his step. War had turned me into this. A hunted animal, instincts honed to a razor's edge. Pushing on, I followed the path toward where I hoped our allied platoon was. The ruins grew denser, streets choked with overturned vehicles and barricades. I climbed over a burned-out truck, its cab riddled with holes, and froze. On the ground lay a body, a Soviet scout, his uniform fresh with blood, a single bullet hole in his forehead. His eyes were open, staring in eternal surprise. My stomach churned. The sniper's work, no doubt. How many had he claimed today? I knelt, closing his eyes out of respect, and noticed something clutched in his hand. A map, crudely drawn, marking positions. I pocketed it, adding it to my growing collection of talismans. The locket, the icon, now this. Each a piece of someone else's story, weighing on me like chains. As I rose, a voice shattered the quiet. Not a shout, but a whisper carried on the wind. Ruski, du bist schon tot. German, close enough to raise the hairs on my neck. He was here, in the ruins with me, no longer content with the tower. The game had changed. He was stalking me on foot. Panic surged, but I forced it down. Think, Ivan, think. I backed away, eyes darting. A doorway to my left led into a bombed-out building. Perhaps a way through. I slipped inside, the air musty with decay, floorboards creaking underfoot. Sunlight filtered through holes in the roof, casting beams like spotlights in a theater of horror. Room to room I moved, rifle ready, ears straining. A shadow flickered ahead. Him? I fired, the shot echoing, plaster exploding from the wall. No cry, no body, just silence mocking me. My mind raced to tales from the trenches. The German snipers were elite, trained in patience and precision, some said to have hundreds of kills. This one felt personal, as if my survival that first night had offended him. I reached a staircase, half collapsed, and climbed carefully, each step a potential betrayal. From the upper floor I might spot him. At the top, a hallway stretched, doors hanging off hinges. I crept forward, heart in my throat. A floorboard groaned behind me. I spun, but too late. A figure lunged from the shadows, tackling me to the ground. We grappled, his hands strong, his breath hot on my face. It was him, the sniper, his eyes cold blue steel, uniform immaculate compared to my rags. He pinned me, a knife flashing in his hand. "Tut," he hissed, the blade descending. I bucked, kneeing him, rolling free. My rifle was gone, lost in the struggle. I grabbed a loose brick, swinging it wildly. It connected with his arm, the knife clattering away. We circled each other, breathing heavy, the room a cage. He was taller, broader, but I was fueled by desperation. He lunged again. I dodged, punching his jaw. Pain exploded in my knuckles, but he staggered. I tackled him, driving him against the wall. Dust rained down. "Why me?" I growled in broken German, though I knew he wouldn't answer. His response was a sneer, a fist to my gut. Winded, I doubled over. He retrieved his knife, advancing. Time slowed. The icon in my pocket, Lena's face, the promise. With a roar, I charged, grabbing his wrist, twisting. The knife fell. We crashed through a weakened wall, tumbling into the adjacent room in a heap of plaster and wood. Disoriented, I scrambled up first, spotting my rifle. I grabbed it, aiming at him as he rose, blood trickling from his temple. Our eyes locked, his defiant, mine resolute. "Not today," I whispered, finger on the trigger. But before I could fire, a shell whistled overhead, slamming into the building. The world erupted in noise and debris, the floor giving way beneath us. I fell, darkness swallowing me, the sniper's shout lost in the chaos. When I came to, buried under rubble, pain everywhere, I clawed my way out, coughing dust. The sniper was gone. Buried? Escaped? I didn't know. But I was alive, the map still in my pocket, guiding me onward. The hunt wasn't over. It had just begun a new chapter. Dust settled around me like a shroud, coating my uniform, filling my mouth with the gritty taste of Stalingrad's ruins. I coughed, my lungs protesting, every inch of my body screaming from the fall and the fight with the sniper. The room, or what was left of it, was a chaos of collapsed beams and shattered plaster, sunlight piercing through new holes in the ceiling like accusatory fingers. My rifle lay nearby, half buried, and I grabbed it, using it as a crutch to pull myself up. Pain lanced through my side, ribs bruised or broken, I couldn't tell. The sniper was nowhere in sight. The shell's explosion had either buried him under the rubble or given him an escape. Part of me hoped for the former. But deep down I knew he was too cunning, too much like a shadow to be ended so easily. His words still rang, "You're already dead." But here I was, defying him again, clawing back from the brink. I patted my pockets, the locket, the icon, the map, all still there, talismans of survival in this endless nightmare. The map snatched from the dead scout was my lifeline now. I unfolded it with trembling hands, the paper stained with blood that wasn't mine. It showed positions, our lines in red pencil, German advances in blue, a dotted path leading east to a reinforced bunker where another platoon held out. If I could reach them, link up, maybe we could push back, turn the tide in this sector, but the path wound through more ruins. Sniper territory. No choice. Petrov and Sasha were counting on me. The civilians, Maria, Olga, little Yuri, their faces haunted me. War wasn't just about holding ground. It was about protecting the flickers of life that remained. Limping out of the building, I kept low, the afternoon sun casting long shadows that played tricks on my eyes. Every pile of debris could hide him, every window a potential scope. My mind replayed the grapple. His blue eyes cold and unyielding, the knife flashing. He'd been close enough to kill me a dozen times, yet he'd whispered, drawn it out. Why, a personal vendetta? Or was I just another mark in his tally? A story to tell if he survived. I pushed the thoughts aside. Dwelling on it would paralyze me. The city groaned around me. Distant gunfire a constant underscore. The occasional scream cutting through like a knife. As I navigated the dotted path on the map, the ruins gave way to a bombed-out square, once perhaps a market, now a graveyard of stalls and carts. Bodies lay scattered, frozen in poses of flight or fight, dusted with snow like forgotten statues. I averted my eyes, but one caught my attention. A German officer, his coat open, papers spilling from his satchel. Curiosity or desperation drew me closer. I knelt, rifling through the documents. Maps, orders, and German script I could barely decipher, but one word stood out: Geheimnis and secret. My limited knowledge from captured intel told me that much. Attached was a sketch, a location marked deep in the ruins not far from here. A warehouse bunker, something important enough to guard. A chill ran through me. Was this why the sniper hunted so relentlessly? Protecting a secret? I pocketed the paper, adding it to my collection, a puzzle piece that might explain the madness. Continuing, the path led to a sewer grate, half hidden under rubble. The map noted it as a shortcut. I pried it open, the metal screeching in protest, and descended into the darkness. The air was foul, thick with the stench of waste and decay, water sloshing at my ankles. My boots echoed in the tunnel, a lonely sound amplified by the confines. Flashbacks hit. The earlier shaft with Sasha, the basement trap. Claustrophobia clawed at me, but I pressed on, the map's dotted line my guide. Hours seemed to pass in that underworld, though it was likely minutes. The tunnel branched, and I chose based on the sketch, hoping it led upward. Faint light ahead, a exit grate. I climbed, pushing it open, emerging into a courtyard flanked by warehouses. The map's endpoint was near, but as I stepped out, a figure detached from the shadows. Not the sniper, a Soviet comrade, rifle raised.
Halt! Identify!
He barked. Relief flooded me. Ivan Petrovich, 13th Guards, scouting for link-up. He lowered his weapon, waving me forward. You're lucky. This area's hot. He led me to the bunker, a fortified position dug into a hill, camouflaged with debris. Inside, a dozen men huddled around a radio, faces gaunt but determined. Their commander, a captain with a scarred cheek, listened to my report. Our trench holding, losses high, sniper active. He nodded gravely. We've heard of him. The ghost of Stalingrad, they call him. 100 kills, maybe more. I showed him the German paper. His eyes widened. This is a supply cache. Ammo, food, perhaps even intel on their plans. If we take it, we cripple them here. The twist hit like a shell. The sniper wasn't just hunting. He was guarding. That warehouse marked on the paper was his charge, and I'd stumbled into it. The captain rallied a squad. Petrovich, you lead. You found it. We moved out at dusk, shadows lengthening, the cold deepening. The warehouse loomed, doors ajar. We breached, expecting resistance. Inside, crates stacked high, but no guards. Too quiet. As we advanced, a shot rang out. The sniper from a catwalk above. Men fell, chaos erupting. I fired back, climbing ladders, pursuing him through the maze. We cornered him on the roof, the city sprawling below like a wounded beast. He turned, rifle slung, hands up, but a smirk on his face. Rusky, he said, you win. But as we approached, he revealed a detonator. The secret dies with me. The warehouse was rigged, explosives, the supplies were bait or perhaps a trap for us. I lunged, but he pressed it. The world exploded, flames roaring, the roof collapsing. I was thrown clear, landing hard in the snow, ears ringing, vision blurred. The squad, some survived, dragging me away as the building burned. In the inferno's light, I realized the truth. War's secrets weren't just maps or caches. They were the choices we made, the lives we took or saved. The sniper's end, self-inflicted, taking his mystery to the grave, left me hollow. Was he a monster? A soldier like me? The Lockett icon map all survived, but I was changed. As medics tended my wounds back at the bunker, news came, reinforcements arriving, the tide turning. But for me, the battle raged on inside. The sniper's voice a permanent whisper. Dawn broke, and I breathed, still alive, but forever marked by the buried truth of Stalingrad. The flames from the warehouse licked at the night sky, casting flickering shadows over the ruins of Stalingrad, a city that had become both my prison and my crucible. I lay there in the snow, medics hovering around me, their hands steady as they bandaged wounds that went far deeper than flesh. The sniper was gone, swallowed by the explosion he himself had triggered, his secrets buried under tons of rubble and fire. But his voice, that chilling declaration, "You're already dead," lingered in my mind like smoke that refuses to dissipate. I had survived him, the tanks, the bombs, the endless nights of terror, but survival came at a price. I thought of the locket, now warm against my skin, a relic from a stranger whose story I'd never know. The icon from Maria, a beacon of fated faith, the map that had led me to this pyre. Each item was a thread in the tapestry of war, woven with blood and loss, reminding me that every breath I took was borrowed from those who no longer could. As reinforcements poured in, the tide of battle shifted, the Red Army pushing back the invaders street by street, house by house. But for me, Ivan Petrovich, the farm boy turned soldier, the war didn't end with victory parades or medals pinned to my chest. It ended in quiet moments, staring at the Volga River frozen under the winter sun, wondering how I could return to my village, to Lena, carrying the weight of what I'd seen and done. I had killed men, faceless enemies at first, then ones whose eyes met mine in final pleas. I had saved lives too. Sasha, who limped home to his family. The civilians who whispered thanks before vanishing into the shadows. War revealed the fragility of life, the raw instinct to cling to it, and the haunting truth that humanity persists even in the darkest chaos. It stripped away illusions, leaving only the core. We are all capable of monstrosity and mercy, often in the same heartbeat. My story isn't one of heroism. It's a testament to endurance, to the disturbing reality that survival sometimes demands we bury parts of ourselves to keep going. And in that burial lies the secret few dare to unearth. War doesn't just destroy bodies, it reshapes souls, leaving echoes that whisper through the rest of our days. Years later, as an old man in a peaceful village, I would sit by the fire, the locket around my neck, telling fragments of this tale to wide-eyed grandchildren. But the full truth? That stayed buried like the sniper's cache, because some revelations are too raw, too unsettling. They force us to question, what would you do in my place? Would you pull the trigger? Make the deal with darkness to see another dawn? Stalingrad taught me that hope is a defiant spark in the void, but it's fueled by choices that scar. I breathed at dawn, as the title promised, but each breath carried the ghosts of those who didn't. That's the human condition in war, not glory, but grit, not victory, but the quiet agony of carrying on when everything screams to stop. You've made it to the end of my story. Listener, a journey through the frozen hell of Stalingrad, where every word was pulled from the depths of memory, every scene etched in blood and ice. Not everyone has the fortitude to face such truths, to stare into the abyss of human suffering and resilience without flinching. But you did. You walked with me through the ditches, the basements, the rooftops, feeling the sniper's gaze, the roar of tanks, the whispers of the lost. For that, I congratulate you. You're part of a rare breed. A select group with the courage to confront the raw edges of history, to honor the voices that echo from the graves of forgotten battles. Your perseverance makes you more than a viewer. It makes you a guardian of these stories, ensuring they don't fade into oblivion. Now, to seal this connection, I invite you to leave a comment below with these exact words. This story changed the way I see war. By doing so, you're not just sharing your thoughts, you're declaring yourself one of the most committed followers, a seeker of truth who isn't afraid to let these narratives reshape your understanding of conflict, survival, and the human spirit. Your comment builds our community, a network of souls bound by the desire to uncover the hidden layers of history, to remember the fragility and strength that war exposes. It's a pledge to keep these testimonies alive, to challenge the silence that often shrouds the darkest chapters of our past. But don't stop there. Share this video far and wide. Let it spread like whispers through the ruins, reaching those who need to hear it. Perhaps someone teetering on the edge of forgetting, or another soul haunted by their own battles. By sharing, you become a beacon in the fog of indifference, ensuring that the realities of war, the ones so many try to bury, pierce through and awaken minds. Imagine it. Your action could be the spark that ignites curiosity in a stranger, pulling them into this web of stories that reveal the true cost of conflict. And if these tales grip you as they have me, subscribe to the channel. Think of it as stepping into a shadowed archive, a vault where the ghosts of war murmur their secrets, inviting only those brave enough to listen. Subscribing binds you to this unique fellowship, a circle of explorers delving into the unsettling depths of human endurance, where each video is a key unlocking doors to the unspoken. You're not just a subscriber. You're a sentinel standing guard over narratives that refuse to be silenced, a part of something profound that challenges how we perceive the world. Keep watching, keep questioning, keep the flame of curiosity burning. There are more stories waiting, more survivors' whispers, more twists in the fog of war. Until next time, remember, in the quiet after the battle, the truth breathes on, waiting for those with the heart to hear it.